Hello, everyone. We have a few people that have joined us already. I know they will continue to join us. And thank you for joining us today, everyone. Welcome to day one of the Cyberkach AI security webinar. My name is Onyeka Chokereke, and I'm the host for today. I will be guiding us through the conversation we have, especially with the panelists that we have with us today. And I'm really excited because this is a three-part series that we've taken some time to set up intersection between software engineering, the AI that we know about now. Everyone hears about AI and all the rave about it. And obviously, cybersecurity, which is what we are very much interested in at cyberkach.com. So today's session will focus on vibe coding, a term I imagine we may have heard. If we have not heard, we're going to take some time to explain it. So, and what will be our focus for today? First, we'll look at what vibe coding is, what is vibe coding, and what new risks it could introduce to you as a person or even the office that you work in. How all everyone that's adopting AI should respond to these new risks. And the main takeaways for today with what will be what practical steps can you as an individual, can you as a dev, can you as an AI person, can you as customer service, what steps can you take to stay more secure by yourself? And to explore this, I have obviously with me an incredible list of panelists. We have said day one, we're discussing how to build trustworthy software with AI assistance. And our panelists for today, if you don't mind, I will just introduce them. So first we have Ripsin Oguzo. Ripsin is a manager of cyber and automation in KPMG, has several years of experience, over 11 years of experience in the tech, in the automation and the cyber industry. And he also has experience leading automation and analytics teams. And then we have John. John is an AI programs lead. All things AI, John is interested in. And interestingly, John is co-created the number one AI in business program. You can check John's LinkedIn for the link to that. And over the past 3 years, John has been focused on upskilling staff, upskilling people, over 2,000 professionals in AI across different countries. Then we have Zeno. Zeno is a head of software engineering. Hi, Zeno, head of software engineering at SICMake. And Zeno leads a large team of software engineers, at least 50 of them, and also is involved in a bunch of AI startups. So it's a strong team today. We have a very strong team today to guide us through the conversation on what vibe coding is. Again, my name is Kachi Onyekachi Okereke. I'm the host, and I'm the host of the Cyberkach podcast as well. I'm the lead of Cyberkach. And let's log in. So, just a bit about Cyberkach before we go then into the conversation. We help different teams, we help individuals as well with practical security trainings. That has been our drive, providing security training tools and services to them. And these are some of the things that we do. So, helping people to stay aware of what is happening at each time, which is why we're doing this webinar as well, for cybersecurity on your fingertips. Now, you can follow us on LinkedIn. That is a direct link to our LinkedIn. But let's get back then to the conversation. And just to make sure that everyone is on the same page, what is vibe coding? Now, let's adopt one definition. This would be a new approach to software development that heavily relies on AI to generate, refine, debug code based on natural language prompts. We've all used ChatGPT and we tell it to do so many things for us. They're using ChatGPT in that instance. Instead of explicitly writing your code, you then describe what you want the software to do and the AI pops out the code for you. Okay, so hopefully we are all on the same page now. I will get to hear, and we can get to hear now from our different speakers. First, and this is how we'll go for today. First, we'll take some opening statements for them, maybe 2, 3 minutes to just hear their thoughts from their different background and experience on the topic for today. And then we'll go into the questions. Let me just say at this point, please feel free to drop questions. You should have a Q&A tab, so you should be able to drop questions for us, and we will make sure that we get to them. So, John, do you want to go first?
Oh yes, thank you for this wonderful webinar. Right, so to me, vibe coding is a very powerful powerful phenomenon, and I say it because what vibe coding means in my world is that I get to speak to hundreds of people every quarter about the possibilities, and the possibilities now is that anyone can build at least a prototype of whatever idea that they have. Right, that's where we are currently. No matter their level of technical exposure, it is possible to build a prototype. There's so many options from Replit to Factory, Bloom, and a host of all of these new startups that Y Combinator recently unleashed, right? So vibe coding to me is the capacity, the ability for anyone, just about anyone, to build a working prototype. So we're no longer in that stage of just having ideas. We're now at the point where ideas must translate to not just documentation, not just conversations about what is possible, but an actual working prototype of whatever solution that you have in mind. Which means that the bar for a lot of jobs simply go higher because the cognitive load that would have been expended by a developer, or the resources that would have been spent by a developer to build prototypes, you don't need to do that anymore, right? You can have AI agents just build out these prototypes for you because of vibe code. And it's incredible because I've seen a lot of people do vibe coding, from CEOs of multinational companies to secretaries, and just about anyone. In fact, I've heard this story. This happened within Replit, where they needed to hire, they needed to get a CRM system for their company, and then the people that they were talking to were quoting tens of thousands of dollars. Was someone within the HR team inside of the actually built a vibe coding platform, an internal tool. So there's no external exposure. So the security risks in this case were much less for Repeat as a company, right? And then of course there are all kinds of risks attached to it. We've seen vibe coded products that when it sends out authentication, it's showing the code that was sent as authentication right on the screen, saying, "Oh, I've sent let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 as OTP to this particular email or this particular number." Right? So we've seen some of those risks already. But in a nutshell, vibe coding is this emerging phenomenon, like you described it, that allows just about anyone to have the power to go from idea to working prototype. I say working prototype because I wouldn't assume, even if some startups promise that they're going to give you end to end full production apps, I don't think we're there yet. You can just have working prototypes with this vibe coding platform. So that's what I would say in a nutshell. That's my exposure to vibe coding so far.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, John. That's a strong introduction. So, Zeno, we have you. You want to quickly comment?
Yes, yes. Thanks once more for having me. I think it's quite an interesting topic and also quite an interesting time as well. Because when we talk about development in general, it's been evolving over the years. And in recent year, with the introduction of AI, it has actually reached another level of evolving. Even the existing developers need to start adopting and need to continue to adopt at a quite fast pace, so else they will get left behind. So vibe coding in itself, it's just an interesting way for newer people to also get into the market. And there's been a lot of new people getting into the market. There's been a lot of people getting enabled. So talk about CTOs, CEOs, salespeople, people who have no idea how to even code properly. That creates a new entry point for all of them. Of course, that comes with its own risk because now you have a lot of people doing things that they have no idea what they're doing and just 100% relying on the AI. Of course, it's some of the things that I'll be covering later on when we go deeper into the topic. But for me, it's actually an exciting time because companies can now scale without having to scale personal. So you have situations whereby people can build, the next big thing with like 5 people. Usually they would have had to do that with 50 people. Of course, that introduces its own risk, and that introduces its own challenges in terms of the job market. But it is quite interesting in general in the direction that we are going. And I'm always open to exploring all these directions and discussing them in general. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, Zeno. So we will just continue when Rissim joins us back. We will hear his opening statement. So just for some context now, I'm sharing something on the screen. I hope you can see it. This is just a look at random news or random events or random stats that are happening around people adopting or using AI as a means to build software development. So we can see first here at the left, according to Search, a Silicon Valley CEO saying that vibe coding less 10 engineers do the work of 100, which Zeno just talked about. And at the top right, the interesting one here then is that vibe coding surges as Y Combinator startups, we know some of them now get AI to write their code, which is interesting. And also at the bottom there with a recent one of a solo founder that had to sell off his new product that he vibe coded for 80 million cash. So um, it is very common if you also maybe search, go to Google search, you'll see that vibe coding as a term is frequently searched. People are all relying on the co-pilots to build. So it's important that we talk about it. Yes. So let's start with the question. Oh, Ripson are back. You're back. Are you able to give your opening statements now before we go on?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Apologies. I think I was drawn back by the network. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah, so if from my own context, I think vibe coding is developers and engineers across across the development or engineering space to accelerate development. Something that allows you to speed up the process. Before now, what we usually do is sort of use Stack Overflow to search on queries that we may not be able to sort of get direct answers to. But with the use of large language model, even more specifically, subdomain large language model, it then becomes a lot easier for you to accelerate your build process, right? And that's what vibe coding is all about. That from back-end perspective, front-end perspective, how AI is sort of helping you accelerate the entire process and speed up the entire process, and also reducing the amount of time you use in less productive activities. That's my opening and introduction around vibe coding.
Okay.
Catch you over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Ripson, we'll just stay with you since we have you here. We're moving into the next set of questions. So, specifically, just to establish a base, we'll ask each of the panelists. Uh, Have you ever, on your own, maybe tried to vibe code a software product? Maybe on your own, maybe someone within your team. I know each of you leads different teams. And what stood out for you most about that experience? So, Richardson, let's stay with you and just hit you with that question.
Okay, okay. So for me, yeah, I've done a lot of that. I think my experience has been some models are more productive than the others, right? You sort of have this intuition or this idea, and then rather than you go build by yourself, you just sort of write those natural language down to an LLM. But what I've seen is that some LLM sort of produce more accurate results than the other. That's my it's been my experience. And sometimes you run it, it doesn't work. You have to sort of go back, reiterate. Sometimes sometimes it gives you. In most cases, you have to actually when you sort of retweak and retweak and retweak both writing codes and all that. So that's my experience so far.
Okay, okay, that's interesting.
What's you, Kachi?
Yes, thank you. That's interesting. I know you did mention that some of the platforms or the AI platforms are more reliable than others. Yes, definitely. We will try to explore more of that. So back, Zeno, you want to go next? Same question.
Yeah, so I mean, I have multiple times tried to use various AI tools. Um, But I think one experience which actually did stood out wasn't my direct experience. So in one of the startups that I consult for, we had a situation where they wanted to build out a very complex solution. And this solution was so complex that they couldn't like properly process it or properly break it down, or properly understand it. But the CEO at that time understood what he wanted and he had some background knowledge on that. So what happened was that he got on Replit, which is one of the tools which you would potentially use for vibe coding, quote unquote. Um, and he built this tool in 2 days, basically. So 2 days because he slept. If he didn't sleep, probably he will complete it before that. And it was quite interesting to see the tool working with all the features that we wanted or that we were discussing in terms of the complexity. Everything was just there and working, right? It was ready. There was even a link. You could use it, we could deploy it, and so on. But of course, for that particular solution, the thing that was gotten from Replit wasn't deployed to the production, but it helped us to properly understand what was needed, to properly articulate the requirements, and then to transform what was made into something that was ready for production. And I think that this kind of use case is one of the big wins that comes with vibe coding because there are quite many cases where things needed to be done fast, but you can't do it fast because it takes years to go over all the details. With vibe coding, you could literally speed that up, and I think this basically stands out in every situation for me.
Okay, thank you very much. Excellent statements. So the questions are already coming in from the listeners. Just to say, please, you can drop your questions. If you want to ask a specific person a question, you can do that. But drop your questions, and later in the conversation, we will attend to them. John?
Oh yeah. So my bipolar experience, well, it's not just me, but because I get to talk to people, a lot of people about AI, it also involves, experiencing other people's first time with vibe coding. And, the first time I believe was August of 2024, right? That was, the first time that we attempted to do something called vibe coding with a class of people. This was in Saudi Arabia, right? Um, about 200 or so founders. What we did was show them that with Claude Artifact, right? Because a Replit agent hadn't launched at the time. With Claude Artifact, they can actually build simple prototypes, not the actual thing of their whatever ideas they had in mind. And then by September, I believe late the last quarter of 2024, that was when Replix Agent launched. And then, of course, it opened a lot of possibilities, made a lot of things possible for founders. And there's this thing called the task completion time horizon, which is very fantastic. So between 2023 and 2024, the capacity of AI agents used to double every several months. But in 2025, that has reduced to just about 4 months. So what it means is that the vibe coding platforms, even if Zeno noted, they're great for building prototypes that show you this is how this is supposed to work, all the features, how everything works. But when you put them into production, you start to notice they break down in some really funny ways, right? So what that task completion time horizon seems to indicate that the vibe coding platforms as unreliable as they are now, because I'm trying to answer a question that I've already seen. As unreliable as they are now, it is possible that by later this year and even into 2026, they become so good that you can actually trust the production output from these platforms. And then personally, I've vibe coded prototypes. I wouldn't say I've done anything that is end to end. What I vibe code is mostly prototypes that show sales stakeholders this is what we're trying to build, right? And of course, in recent times, in the last 2 weeks, I've vibe coded a solution that is going to be presented for this Llama Impact Accelerator happening between Meta and the Federal Ministry of Information, Communication, and Digital Economy. So what I told an audience, and because I shared this experience of vibe coding that solution with them, is that gone are the days when you would see a program or whatever application out there that says we need you to build an MVP, and then you say you can't build an MVP because it's impossible, or you don't have the technical co-founder. So the solution that is being presented, and I know that some of the solutions that were presented for that impact accelerator were all vibe coded. And, an impact accelerator is not asking you to bring the full solution. They just want you to have something that works. And then afterwards, if you win the money, you can then build the actual thing.
Okay, thank you, John. I like some of your responses because you interact with so many different business leaders, so we can hear it when you speak. So let me stay with you again. You've done a bunch of work in AI R&D, and Zeno has name dropped Replit already. But we've been talking vibe coding. So what are some of the most exciting from your perspective now? AI tools or products in the software development space? I know there are, you can actually mention in the other spaces, but yes, some of the most relevant ones you would say.
So I think for technical people, most of them prefer GitHub Copilot, right? And then I think Cursor is also really good for the technical people. Then for the non-technicals, like the who just want to build and prototype some, um, it's really hard keeping up with a lot of them because, like you showed on your screen some moments ago, like up to 25% of the last, set of startups from YC are all AI coding platforms. Well, I think the most prominent from among that, the last set of people that were unleashed in the market is Factory, right? Factory AI. They have a really great vibe coding solution. This is in addition to Winsoft, which was acquired by OpenAI. Replit is still the most one of the most prominent names. Um, there's Bloom, right? Right. Bloom AI is also really fantastic, and then there's Emergent, right? So Bloom and Emergent are from the last YC YC said. I've tried my hands
I
on
know
both
you
of them,
sent
and
me,
they're great.
you sent me Emergent at some point, forgive me. You sent me Emergent to take a
Oh
look
yes.
at. Yes, yeah, but continue, yes, sorry.
Oh yes. Oh yes. So yeah. So but the thing is, so many of these solutions are show up every day. So it's best to just be curious about learning what's new out there in the market. So the best way to actually keep up is if you're trying to build whatever kind of prototype or solution, better to use a deep research tool. You could use deep research from OpenAI or from Gemini. Just ask it, I'm trying to build out this solution. Which vibe coding platform do you recommend? And then you can pick out from like the growing number of vibe coding platforms. I've just mentioned Factory, I've mentioned Bloom, I've mentioned Emergent, Cursor, Winsoft, Replit. There's so many of them. And I know that Google is currently working on the vibe coding solution, right? So I mean, it's Google. They know how to do this AI thing. So it's possible that they launch their own solution and it's better than everything else out there, which is why I say the best way to actually keep up with all of the vibe coding options is ask an AI agent somewhere, OpenAI or Gemini. This is what I'm trying to build. Which vibe coding solution do you recommend? And then it can just give you what it
Okay.
thinks is what it
Okay,
thinks is the best solution.
John, let me stay with you because I know apart from maybe using the platform, you speak to very different people. And I look at our attendees, there are people that do so many different things. Yes. So what are some apart from maybe building software, You talk to business leaders all the time. What are some of the other use cases that even these AI co-pilots or platforms could help with?
Okay, so there's something called the Job Impact Index, which you'll find on there's an AI4that.com. The Job Impact Index is the most powerful, one of the most powerful pages on the internet today. And I say that because every role that currently exists, from the CEO's role to the least in the organization, you can find all the AI solutions. When I say solutions, I mean level one AI solutions, chatbots, or level two AI solutions. Um, you know, reasoners or even level three AI solutions, AI agents that can be applied to each of these different roles, right? So if you want to, the best way to actually apply AI to any organization is to rethink the job from the ground up. The best way to rethink it is find out all the tools that currently exist. So for you to find out all the tools that exist for any given role, use the job impact index. It's on there's an AI for that.com. So you may have to search out job impact index. There's an AI for that. So you find out all the CIO, right? So you find all the tools, all the agents that apply to this person, and then you can begin to actually rethink how they do their job. That's my best recommendation. Because if I mention, I mean, there are thousands and thousands of tools, so it's best to just go to
Yeah,
the job impact index and find the tools that work.
yeah. So you call that the job impact index. Okay, that's fine. It's something that we can
Yeah.
highlight for our listeners. That's a very good takeaway, if you don't mind. So, final question for you, John, on this particular one. So, now that people can go to the job impact index, oh, Ripson, you want to comment? Please do.
Yeah, so I wanted to jump in a bit also to just to add to what John has said, right?
Mhm.
From a platform perspective, vibe coding and or what could fit into your vibe coding tooling or whatever you want to call it, right? Would all typically depend on what your outcomes are, what you have defined as your outcome, or what you want to actually do. You want to write codes, right? You want to write codes, so you could. There are tools around that. You want to build workflow, visual workflows, right? So I think there are a lot of solutions that sort of aligns mostly with the objective of your build. So it could be whether you want to do something that is visual. The vibe code, then the vibe code platform that you would want to sort of align with a lot more would slightly be different. If you want to do something around low code, no code, right? You want to do something around visual flow. You want to even sort of build something, your own custom prompt, right? Sort of you so typically just to add to what he said it typically depends on what you want to what your objectives are in terms of build. That's what I wanted to add.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. So John, back to thank you, Ripson. John, back to you. So when people are using this job impact index and looking at different AI to bring into their stack, what blind spots or what risks should they be looking out for, especially the developers, the security teams, or even anyone when they integrate these tools into production?
Right. So I think I'll speak for anyone first, then developers. There's a very neat heuristic that is very helpful. If you are not able to verify the output from any AI system, it could be a level one AI system, a chatbot, or a level three AI system, an agent. If you cannot independently verify the output,
Okay. Maybe
I can pick it up from there.
yes.
Basically, so there are different risks. I mean, if you look at it from the various perspective of the people involved, one of the biggest challenge, one of the biggest risk to vibe coding is the vibe coder itself. So the person who is making the code. If you're having knowledge gaps, if you're having if you don't have all the necessary information needed to vibe code in the most adequate and correct way, then you're the first risk. Now, this doesn't matter if you're the developer or you're the marketer or you're the CEO or CTO, the risk starts from there. And when you take that information which is being made and then you just ship it straight off to production, That's the second risk. So if there's no proper validation pipeline along the way to ensure that the thing which is being created is being checked over again, to ensure that there are no malicious code, there's ensure there's no hallucination which is happening along the way, to ensure that this thing is properly done, not just testing it that, oh, it works, let's ship it, but also looking at all the different libraries and all the things that are being used to generate that item. And then the next risk is if the thing is actually exposing AI to the rest of the world. So, for example, you've built a chatbot, you have coded a chatbot, or you've coded a lawyer or anything else which you're trying to build. Understanding if your prompt is properly secured, if it's airtight. Now, there's no 100% secured prompts. So if you have prompted the thing to say, hey, you're a lawyer, you do this, you do that. If somebody comes and tries to prompt it in a different way, are they able to get through that? Are they able to get it to do something that it's not supposed to do, and so on? Another risk which people do and people don't pay attention to is the information that is being fed into the AI. So a lot of people use third-party AI tools. They just feed the business information, but business information may be fine. But people also feed personal information of various people that are part of their business. So you get people's email, surname, last name, all kinds of stuff being fed into the system. If there is no proper lockdown on that data, if that data is not even hosted privately, then there's a big chance that somebody can get it to be leaked and somebody can get the AI to hallucinate and provide unnecessary information which shouldn't be provided. So risk actually goes across a various aspect. And aside from the traditional risk, there are also these kinds of new set of risks that are being created daily as the adoption grows, as people use the tool more and more. So I would reiterate to say that the biggest risk that I see is the vibe coder itself already from the start.
That's a very, very unique perspective, and that's interesting as well as, So I would want us to explain, and hopefully John can finish what he was saying. I would want us to explain what we mean by AI hallucination, so that will carry everyone along. Can you do that?
Yeah, sure. So let's imagine that you've contracted somebody to do a job for you, let's say a plumber, right? And then suddenly when the plumber is doing the work, you realize that some electrical components are not working. I know, let's say your computer is not working. And then the plumber says, "Oh, I can fix that." Right? And then you give him the computer, and then he starts saying, "Oh, I think the keyboard is broken, or I think something else is broken," which is unrelated with what the actual problem is. This is the biggest, let's say, the most visible way to see this problem of hallucination. But it actually comes in another way whereby the AI thinks it's doing the right thing, but actually it's doing the wrong thing. And that's because it doesn't have proper thinking ability. It's just predicting the words. So there are times when it's trying to predict the words, it takes a wrong turn because there's nobody really checking if it's taking the wrong turn or not. It just keeps going. And then it falls on the vibe code, falls on the person who's prompting to now identify that, hey, you've taken the wrong turn. All right. Imagine you go to a new country, you get from the airport, you take a taxi, you say, bring me to somewhere. And the taxi guy doesn't know where it's going. It takes a wrong turn. You have no idea that he took a wrong turn. So you just keep going round and round in cycle. But if you know where you're going, immediately the guy takes a wrong turn, you're like, huh, you've taken a wrong turn. Are you sure you're going in the right place? So this is kind of how I will visualize vibe coding, especially when it comes to the LLMs, the AI hallucinating. It's just doing the stuff. It thinks it's doing it right, but it doesn't know that it's taking the wrong turn. And it's now up to somebody to say, hey, you've taken the wrong turn. Let's go back.
Okay. I now understand why you suggested that the vibe coder may be the biggest risk, because if you don't understand enough about the security risks around what you are doing, then you wouldn't know. And that's why we're here. So we'll point it out for all our listeners here, our listeners online on YouTube. So please, again, you can ask your questions. Some two questions have come in, and we'll take them later. John, do you want to finish what you were saying?
Yeah, so I would say yes, there's a very neat heuristic for knowing when to use a particular tool and when to trust the output from that particular tool, right? Whether it's a level one AI system, a chatbot, or a level three, an agent. And it's this. I mean, I'm not a radiologist, so whenever I see any tool for radiology where I can feed a scan to it and it can tell me if this is a positive or a negative result, I'm not qualified to use that tool, right? Because like Zeno just mentioned, I have to have the professional capacity to actually tell that whatever output is coming from the system is acceptable or not, right? Because like Tao, the famous mathematician, once noted, the LLMs have a way of seeming correct. They can look very correct, but if you don't have the professional capacity to tell that what this thing is giving you is wrong, then you may just accept it, and of course, that may be fatal, right? So, in any case, what is necessary to do is that you have the professional capacity to actually access whatever is coming from this system. So, if I'm not an accountant, then I'm hardly qualified to actually use any AI chatbot that can maybe analyze financial statements or anything else, and then accept the results. And well, saying if I'm not an accountant may be too stiff or maybe too extreme, but if I do not have the know-how to actually analyze financial statements, then using any tool that promises to analyze financial statements for me may be far reach.
Okay, okay, that's interesting because Zeno has told us that the vibe coder is the biggest risk. Zeno has discussed hallucination. And John, now you're suggesting that each person should know their limits. So you know what you can do so that you
Oh yeah.
don't use the wrong element. Okay, thank you very much. So let's get back to Vipsin, if you don't mind. Oh, okay. So Zeno, I'll ask you. Um, so you lead a large teams, of software engineers, and you have mentioned that the vibe coder is the biggest risk. So there is a scenario, if you don't support them well, where you have 50 people that are very big risks in your team. It's your dev team. So how do you maybe support them, or how would someone that is an engineering manager support their team in integrating AI tools securely?
Well, one of the things that I see if you talk about adoption of AI across developer and developer teams is that people are adopting it. Even if you support it or not, people will use it. The question is, to what extent are they using it and how? So, for example, we had some interns join in one of the companies, and um, the interns were basically vibe coding the whole solution. It was visible because during the code review, there was a prompt where, where ChatGPT says something like, you can adjust this to suit your needs. And that information was left into the project. It says that you can adjust this to suit your need. Um, and then I was just looking over the because I look over PRs sometimes. I was just looking over the PRs run. I was like, huh. I put a comment, I was like, okay, so this is vibe coded, right? And everybody laughed it off. But that's the reality that people will use it. And if you don't have the necessary processes in place, if you don't have people looking at the code, reviewing the code, making sure that the quality of what is being done is right, making sure that people are not just creating stuff. Because what you see here is that people not only use the AI to create it, they now trust it so much that they don't even check it properly. They just see it creates the stuff, they look it briefly, okay, it's good, they push it out. So imagine a situation whereby there is no code review processes, there is no like pipelines, there's nothing. That means that the code just gets created and ships out to customers. Vibe coded 100%. So this kind of safety rails are now more and more important to have. It's becoming more difficult to catch this thing. So one of the things that you can do, and one of the things that I have done and people are doing as well, is to use AI to fight AI. So what does that mean? In your pipelines, you start to have AI code reviewers. So you have an AI code reviewer that automatically checks everything. You prompt it all in the right ways. Look for these signs, look for that signs. Here are all the right things you need to check, in the code review. And that one just goes over everything already from the start, giving you all the necessary information. So all the developers can easily work through that. And what I've seen is that this actually gives a lot of speed because previously developers would take time to review. Now you get your review instantly. You already have an approval from the AI. If you need to change something, you already have that as well. And then the human reviewer can just look it over, just make sure that everything is right. And so that also takes a lot of weight off the engineers themselves and leveraging AI to a little bit speed it up. We've also had cases where you install these kinds of tools where you have uh, where you have the AI agents working together, orchestrating, and then building your solutions. And in these kinds of tools, again, it generates the code. It's very important that there are steps along the way to ensure that the quality of the code which is being done is right, and to ensure that these things are not just going to production. So to summarize that, developers will do it. People are supporting it. I am in support of that. And I think that that's basically the future. But we shouldn't forget to ensure that the processes to verify what is being produced is in place, and also to leverage AI to speed up some of these verifications. So it's not hours just spent just making sure that people are not using AI in the wrong way.
Okay, okay. Thank you very much, Zeno. AI code reviewers will definitely move the work faster. I'm going to ask you about security. But before then, in the absence of Ripson, I'll just speak a bit on attack surface. And Ripson, if you are ready to come in, just let me know. I was going to speak on attack surface, but just for some context, your organization's attack surface is um, how much exposure you have or the different layers from which people could attack you. Now, if you have a web application or you have open ports on the internet, that is increasing your attack surface. So when you do things like closing different ports, you're trying to reduce your attack surface. Um, Essentially, the whole point of information security or cybersecurity is that as much as we want to expose our assets or expose our business to outsiders, we want to make sure that our attack surface is as limited as possible. Ripson, are you ready to come in? Uh,
Yes,
okay, so question for
apologies.
you then. Question for you then, Ripson, because you do a lot of work around this in consulting. How would you say that vibe coding and even all the different AIs, not just the one that I used in vibe coding, how would they affect an organization's attack surface? I just try to explain what attack surface is, but you can do that again.
Okay, so obviously, like what you've just sort of, if I'm to build up from what you said, it does increase the attack surface, but to have a clear understanding of how that happens is for us to understand how is vibe coding AI introduced into our system or environment. You understand? So it could come in through a process of where the development team is trying to build, right? They're trying to build a solution. You could have vibe coding or vibe coding risk, as you put it, introduced into your environment or your ecosystem, right? It could also come in through embedded systems. You could have systems that are embedded, right? Where, for instance, you can have your co-pilots, your productivity tools, co-pilots introduced into your embedded into your some of your systems. So because you have a lot of systems that are built custom systems that are built that have open AI API sort of integrated into it. So you could have that also introduced into your system. You could have other ones like freemiums, right, where you have a freemium is either introduced via a web solution into your own environment, or someone is using an additional maybe bring your own device solution and then uses that platform to then introduce that code that vibe code risk into your own environment. So these are sort of the three major ways that you have that introduced into your system. And one of the ways for you to sort of do that, first of all, is to understand data from a governance perspective. One of the ways to secure it is to understand your data, right? Have your data, clear understanding of your data, clear labeling of your data, understand which is sensitive, which is not sensitive, and then also to have governance around AI, right? Around AI and its uses. There has to be some framework that is in place to sort of define AI. Is it fair? Is it auditable? Is it transparent? You know, some of those concepts has to be sort of introduced from a governance perspective into the organization And then when someone is using the Vibe AI, using sort of introducing that risk, sort of passing a prompt into either an LLM that is whitelisted, authorized, or not authorized, the amount of sensitive data that is then exposed, right, is then limited. So I'll just touch right into some of the principles that I know we know a lot about the zero trust principles. Some of those principles by design should be integrated into the process of our build, right? The secure by design principle, right? That's when we see CI/CD conceptualization, or it's either from our regular design, right? There should be a secure by design principle embedded into the process. So what I would do is to understand who have access to what and who shouldn't have access to what, and what data labels should we have access to. So what should be turned on, what should be turned off at each point, and what is sensitive and what should not go outside of the environment. So from these three broad areas, right, it's clear how that risk can be introduced, and if that is properly if you have a clear inventory of these three broad areas of how, and a clear inventory, and then you can then map security controls around some of these three broad categories,
Okay.
right?
Right.
So I don't know what you catch. I don't know if I made a lot of sense.
Yes, 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 definitely you have. Thank you very much. Governance is obviously important. Like understanding your data and governance around data, that is extremely important. That's why we have the three of us for different perspectives. Someone has asked two questions, so please let me just take one of the questions. And there's also been,
Yeah.
I think, a comment came in when Zeno, you were talking about hallucination. I'll just read out the comment. Maybe it was context or discussion with you. Kanyage had said, forgive me, that this is interesting. You were talking about AI hallucinations, and they said, I feel like individuals should know when to stop, especially with the AI prompting, because that's when the AI tools tend to hallucinate the more, when they are prompted in the name of tweaking. So they definitely do agree with what you had said. Uh,
Mhm. Just gonna add a little bit on that. And again, this does require you to be able to understand that you have already taken the wrong turn, right? And then when you understand that the wrong turn has been taken, you may not realize it in the beginning. Let's say you realize it after 20 plus minutes, you've already gone far away. What do you do? And I think this comment ties into that. Some people just start trying to force the AI to go in the right direction, but usually what you need to do is a reset. And sometimes soft reset doesn't work. So if you let's say you're using ChatGPT, you're on the prompt, you're on the already on the message thread. If you've seen that you've messed up that message thread, just extract all the important things you need and start a new thread based on the important things you need. Because to keep trying to fix that thread, you're just gonna keep going down into the rabbit hole. If you are not very experienced in the industry or in the particular space that you are prompting for, it's very easy to go down the rabbit hole there.
okay. Thank you so much, Zeno, for that context. So I said we are going to take one question because this person asked two questions. So let's just take at least one of them. And again, for our listeners, please drop your questions. If you want to direct it to a specific person, whether Zeno, John, or Ripson, you can do that. If not, if you ask a question, I'll just throw it to the three of them. And Falana is asking, I think it's Divine Falana is asking, how reliable is vibe coding? John had already started the answer, but let me
Uh,
ask all of us. How reliable is vibe coding?
I just wanted to add for the answer to that is that depending on who you ask, you'll get different answers. Some people will say it's not reliable, some people will say it's reliable, some people will say be careful. But I will say in this way, vibe coding by using only one tool, especially if you are creating an app or a software or something like that, is probably not very reliable. And what does that mean? So if you're vibe coding, you're using ChatGPT, ChatGPT is doing everything for you. Probably you are not doing it right. The proper vibe coding would require multiple things being put together. And that's why you see platforms like Replit are being successful because what they are doing behind the scene is they are helping you put together all the right agents, all the right tools to make sure that you have the best result. So the vibe coding that people are doing now, just jumping on ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini and just writing stuff in there and getting things out, is probably not the most optimal, reliable one. The vibe coding that is reliable right now is the one where you combine multiple agents to get to your end goal. So that is reliable. And if you're doing it in that way, and if you want to do it in that way, you're probably heading in the right direction.
Okay, thank you, Zeno. Any other takers? John Ripson, do you want to add to that or we can go on? The question is for everybody. How reliable is vibe coding? If not, we can go on.
No, I
Yes, John.
no, no, go on. Yeah.
Okay, 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 that's fine.
No, no, I'll say we can go on.
Okay, yes. So Zeno, let me stay with you. And let's talk security vulnerabilities because yes, there. First of all, it's difficult, or it's not difficult. Maybe it's a challenge to get rid of security vulnerabilities when you're an experienced software engineer and you have to build your platform. Now, people that maybe have no experience in software engineering or have no experience in even information security are able to build platforms, which is good by vibe coding. Um, John, you mentioned the image that was going around the other time about MFA that was displayed on the screen. So, what could people that are interested in vibe coding or building platforms themselves with the assistance of AI, what should they do to minimize security vulnerabilities? What has been effective for your team? Maybe for that intern, what can they do?
Yeah, I think that there is a couple of things and couple of places where this can be sort of attacked from. If we talk about solving issues that arrive with vibe coding, but something to actually pay attention to is understanding where the risks are. The first set of risk, depending on what you're building, is going to be in injection. Now, prompt injection, dependency injection, getting things that are not part of the original setup into the setup. And this affects applications where you have built some kind of LLM solution or custom chat solution or something where the customer has some direct access to the chat, to the bot, to the LLM, to the solution, and or something where the customer provides information and that information goes directly into your um, your AI. So, for example, a customer writes a message to you, or a customer orders something, and then you grab everything that the customer ordered and you dump it into the AI. These kinds of cases, you immediately expose yourself to injection. It could be dependency injection, it could be whatever, it could be database injection, it could be anything, right? Especially if the AI system has access to tools. So tools are ways that the AI, LLMs, whatever this thing is, can query your database or can make a transaction or can pull additional data from somewhere. So especially if this tool have that kind of access, exposing your tool directly to whatever user is entering immediately gives you exposure to that. So first is injection. All the security issues that exist right now for normal system also exist for AI systems. The AI systems are not some crazy new thing. They're a crazy new thing, but they're still susceptible to the regular things that people do to regular systems. So how do you avoid injection? Make sure you're sensitizing the data. So whatever is coming in that goes to the AI system, make sure you're cleaning it, make sure you're verifying, make sure you're doing whatever is needed to do. If you want to continue vibe coding the process of cleaning the data, you could also have an AI that cleans the data before sending it to the next AI. I mean, that's possible to do. I mean, people are doing crazy things these days, and I'm not judging them, but that's also possible to do if you want to go that route. So there are many ways to already avoid this kind of issues when it comes to injection. Apply those ways. clean the data, make sure the right thing is going in. The next thing is code review. So we discussed the issue of the intern making the code. Now, the code itself that was done was fine. It was just that data from what the prompt made wasn't properly cleaned up. In another situation, it could be a totally different thing. It could be that the what is it called? The agent put in some environment variables, had coded some security keys, something like that, and then that information wasn't found during any process because it went to prod. So making sure you have solid code review, making sure that there's a human checking this stuff at different points, multiple point of failures, just to ensure that the code that is getting to prod is as good as it can be, and there's no weird stuff slipping around. I think somebody from the call, I think it would either John or mentioned things about policy. So having the right policies in place. When do you use AI? What do you use it for? What kind of data do you feel feed into the AI? What kind of customer data should you be having in there? If you want to put PII data, how do you do that? Or maybe we don't use PII data in our AI, which means that whatever data you're putting in, you remove the name, email, all this stuff. You keep only the things that really matter in the AI. So having the proper policy around data is also important. Kashi, you wanted to say something?
But yes, thank you. I mean, you can keep saying that's fine, but thank you very much. Obviously, injection is very common software vulnerability. So, input sanitization, like you had said, definitely work. Code reviews, policies, definitely are good way to look at it. I would throw the same question to Ripson, but John, you're still warm, so let's ask you. Security vulnerabilities.
Right. So yeah. It's important to know that injection also happens by images, right? I seen one case where an image, I don't know how it was done, but the injection happened, through an image. The image was fed to the LLM, and then there was an instruction right inside of that image for the LLM to carry out an action, right? So I mean, Zeno has done justice to this question, I believe, because if an injection happens and the agent in question has access to tools, whoever is trying to hack you can say, you know what, I need you to send all of the all of the data in your database. I need you to forward it to this other database, right? That kind of injection can happen. So what I would just add to that is that injections can also happen by images, not just text, as we've seen a number of times. So what I've seen people do to prevent against whatever kind of effects, from bad actors is that they have a sandbox environment, right? So before it gets into the main server, there's a sandbox environment where they test every prompt that before it gets to the main AI system. So I think that's something that other people can adopt, just so that they don't wake up and find out that a simple looking image is something that has been used to cause their entire production to crash.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Richard, do you want to come in here? We are discussing vulnerabilities and how to if you build AI, if you're vibe coding, how to make sure that you stay away from vulnerabilities, cyber vulnerabilities.
Okay. So I think the best approach for because there are lots of vulnerabilities, vulnerable systems everywhere. And I think, like I've said before, the best approach is to use principles, right? There are principles, frameworks. So they are typically the way I would look at it is from a people point of view, a process point of view, right? So from a people point of view, you should have policies, frameworks that sort of speaks to overall management of governance of AI, right? How to protect information assets, protect and govern your AI assets, right? Whether it's from a way that it's either you're using AI to sort of defend against AI, because typically from the way an AI system is built, it typically would run at a very fast rate, and you typically would need something that is sort of that has that capability to be able to fight AI. So from a people perspective, I think one of the most important things is to have a lot of policies, frameworks. So you have a lot of standards, like you have the MIS AI RFM framework, right? That sort of helps you to describe how to manage AI risk. I think it has four domain pillars, right? And then you then well, I think I've talked about governance. Then from a process perspective, right? You have things like um, frameworks like zero trust embedded into your and secure by design embedded into the processes that you have, your build process. And then from a tooling perspective also too, because there are three areas you look at it from a tooling perspective. You must, like I've said before, use AI to fight AI, right? If you don't use AI to fight AI, whether like John spoke about poisoning, right? Some of those things are will be used if you have solutions that can detect poisoning very, very quickly and act on them, right? So you can have solutions that look at those behaviors, identify them, and act on them very, very quickly as you have identified them. So if we start talking about specific vulnerabilities, there are a lot of, I think that OWASP has released top 10 vulnerabilities around, you can also look that up also to top 10 vulnerabilities around AI systems, right? And poison is also sort of tops that chart. Another one is also the kind of privileges and access. So the zero trust conceptualization. I don't want to go down deep because zero trust conceptualization also say you can hardly trust any system nowadays, right? So embedding those concepts into your processes sort of helps you to manage your overall risk with that vibe code, entire ecosystem of AI adoption.
Okay. Okay.
Over to you, Kachi.
Thank you very much, Ripson. I think that is an excellent answer because you broke it down very well. People, process, technology, policies, frameworks, or processes, zero trust. And you also name dropped the OWASP top 10, which is like a cheat code, not necessarily a cheat code, where people can go and look at, oh, these are the OWASP top 10 allows you the OWASP top 10 allows you to go look up the most common software vulnerabilities. So if you're vibe coding, you can use that to check, okay, what are the most common vulnerabilities that could appear in what I'm building and how do I fix those? So thank you very much, Ripson. And just for some context, Zeno and John, you said a lot about injection, and permit me to just explain. In one sentence, injection attacks are the type of cyber attacks that unauthorized persons are inserting malicious code into your program. So you have your code that is supposed to do something, and then someone else inserts another piece of code telling your program or your software to do something else, maybe to expose data or maybe to execute a specific command. So that's what Zeno and John mean when they've talked about injection. There have also been, let me just look at some of the comments from our participants. Someone is saying here, Oluchi, this webinar is great. That's Oluchi. One of my team members, again, Zeno, I think this is response to you, copied and pasted verbatim from ChatGPT. So it's very important to check and be humanized. And Zeno, I see let's just move on and take one more question before we go back to our specific speakers. Now,
I
Zeno,
see
the direct
one
question
question
here.
that was asked concerning the managing the team when you have no experience and
Yeah, so I'll
also
just read it out if you don't mind so that everyone can hear the question that you want to answer. So he says here, thank you for the information being shared. That's Kifo. My question is for Zeno. So what would I need to know to manage a team of engineers who are probably vibe coding without me having a technical background?
this question can go in multiple ways, but um, I'll give you the productive answer. The short answer you probably get from everyone is you should learn and get involved and understand how the whole thing is. Most likely build your knowledge to maybe a PM or a tech PM level, as opposed to being a developer level, because that's probably not the direction you want to go. Just understanding how project works and all of that. But I'll give you a more interesting one is leverage AI. So how do you leverage AI? First of all, you could have an AI reviewer on the GitHub or Bitbucket, whatever, have the guy set it up for you and be the owner of the prompt behind it. So it has a basic prompt, okay, check the code, make sure it's good and all that. But it also has all the information about the project you are trying to build. So you're gonna say to that AI reviewer, this is what I'm trying to build. So be on the lookout for implementations that might not be efficient, things that might not be aligning with what I'm trying to build, things that might cause problem in the future, and so on and so forth, and leave comments about those things when you see them. This is a very simple, effective way. So when the code is being pushed and you're getting them on the GitHub, you get all these reviews. You can also go through them and see the place where you have made for yourself. It gives you a lowdown of what's happening. It gives you how it helps the project forward and so on. And then generally helps you better understand what's going on with the project. A second AI you can leverage here would be an AI architect or an AI project manager. And what you want to do with this one is, again, you want to load in what you're trying to build and then say to it, give me a timeline, help me break it down, help me understand all the small pieces, how they all fit together, give me some diagrams, help me understand the product. Help me understand how I should be building it. Help me understand which things I should be building first, second, and third. And then you can take that information, you can compare it with what the developers are doing to see if there is some kind of alignment. Of course, that doesn't mean that you immediately become a PM and start telling them this is how you do it, because you don't have the experience anyways. But this allows you to understand if they are in some kind of track. It allows you to ask the right questions. For example, you can say, hey, I noticed that we should have done this kinds of things by now. Have we done it? And then they will say, oh, yeah, we plan to do that next week. It will make sense to you. But doing it blindly or trying to force yourself to be in charge of them, that's gonna not end up well. So I would say the easiest way to go about this is leverage AI. Identify a few, three, four AIs you need, load your product information into that, and let them be your advisor. Let them guide you throughout the project. The longer track is gain some knowledge. Again, you can use AI to do that, to gain sufficient knowledge to become a PM or a tech PM, and then you have better understanding of what's going on with the project.
Okay, thank you very much, Zeno. Again, you had mentioned before, as you are, I think John Harrison had mentioned as well. So as you're loading information into AI, you want to be careful whether it's personal information, and that is where what Ripson said comes into play. What is your organization's AI policy? What can you put into AI? What is our governance position on all the different AI platforms? So thank you. We will want to start looking at people's questions because a few of them are coming in. Again, our listeners, thank you for the questions and the comments. Please write in your questions. You can address it to one person. You can just write it, and all of us will try to respond. But before we look at those questions, one more thing, General. And John, I'm going to tap you up for this. Actually, it's for everyone, but I'll start with John. So, John, you've done a lot of training. That's why I want to start from you. You've done a lot of training. So, what kind of policy, what kind of training, what kind of tooling or technology do you think is best to support vibe coding so that people can code securely? So we're
So
going to tell people train your staff. So exactly what should they focus on?
okay, so I think that the example from Repute, which I mentioned in passing, is the perfect example of what can happen. Um, Within their current job function, there are lots and lots of issues, and some of these issues may require external solution, right?
Mhm.
Um, the best way to go about it is exactly like what happened within Replace. The HR needed the CRM system. They needed some form of CRM system different from what they had and because of course they needed extra functionalities. The vendors they reached out to were quoting tens of thousands of dollars, right? Again, there has to be a problem. There has to be a business problem, a need, and then of course whoever has the professional know-how, which we've mentioned a lot in our conversation, you have to have the professional know-how to vet whatever output is coming from this vibe coded solution. So whoever is in charge of that business unit can then proceed to, I would recommend Replit because it has the ability to just help you uh, build out the solution and then deploy, right? Deploy to the degree that people can even already start using the solution, right? So first and foremost is that once the business need is identified by an expert within the business unit, then they can proceed to use Replit or whichever platform provides them the best the best functionality to build out the prototype and eventually the final solution. I've seen a solution built by someone using Emergent. It's a content summarizer. So you give it a YouTube video, it will generate all the transcript and give you a summary of what the video is talking about, timestamps and what have. This is someone who cannot build a solution. So like Zeno noted, it is the best way to actually use this platform is that you try your hands on different ones. But for enterprise and organizations who are very concerned about security, I'd say I'd say that Replace is a very good option. Factory is also another option. These guys already have enterprise plans for anyone who's looking to maybe just do enterprise-wide deployment, and of course, which means that they have teams dedicated to make sure that they support your vibe coding journey. I also noted earlier that Google is building out a vibe coding solution, right? Given the robust security architecture that they have, I'd say when they launch their solution, it would also be a great option to try. And I say that because I currently use Firebase a lot. I've built three prototypes within Firebase, and I did all of this in 3 days, by the way. So Firebase is a great vibe coding platform. And if what they've done with Firebase is anything to go by, you can expect that when they launch the actual vibe coding platform, it is something that people can trust, businesses can trust to actually build out their solution. And this means that all of the products within the Google ecosystem will be available to businesses. So you do not have to worry too much about my email may be exposed, my files may be exposed, and what have you. So I think that the Google Vibe coding solution, which they promised to launch before the second week of July, by the way, is something to look out for. But at this moment in time, the solution which I think is secure and people can just get their hands on and see the power of vibe coding, I'd say Replit and Factory. Those are two solutions that I would
Okay.
always recommend.
Okay, thank you very much. So we can now jump. Thank you for that, John. That was very helpful. So now we can jump to the questions because there's a few of them and they're still coming in. We'll try to answer like some are comments, to be fair. But we'll try to answer as much as we can in the given time. If you have more questions, please drop and we'll try to get to them. So the next from anonymous attendee is in your experience, how could prompts be structured? So someone is asking how to maybe improve their prompts. Is there a particular process that you follow, or are there components that a good prompt should include? The question is for everybody, so anyone can answer.
I can start, I guess, if John or John wants to take it.
Zeno, please.
Oh, okay, maybe okay, all right,
Zeno, yeah.
Yeah, okay, I'll start. I think John would definitely give us a bit more information on that, but I would say it in this way that there are good prompts and there are bad prompts, but also we shouldn't look at it from the perspective of good slash bad prompt. I think the perspective should be here, like, what am I trying to achieve? Think about it as you are communicating with somebody and the person has no idea what you want or what you need. The person can provide you what you want, but you need to be specific with them. So if you take that analogy, it's okay. What do I want? I want to build a to-do list app. Okay, that's the first. title. I want to build a to-do list app. What should be in this to-do list app? You list all the requirements. So I want it to do A, B, C, D, E. I want it to do it in this exact way. I want it to work on a browser. I want people to be able to log in or not log in. I want them to be able to log in using that kind of database or this kind of APIs. So it's very important that you look at it like you're doing a product requirement document, or you're doing like a document that you're going to give to any other developer. If they don't have enough information, they're probably not going to take it on. The difference between a regular developer and AI is that if the AI doesn't have enough information, it will fill in the blank. And that's where it's that's basically the biggest recipe for hallucination. So you need to battle against hallucination by making sure that AI is not filling in any blanks that you don't want it to be filling. Answer all the questions for all the things that are important to you, and that's your prompt. Nobody cares if the prompt is 10 pages long. As long as it covers everything that you need it to be covering, you're good, right? So I wouldn't focus too much on, oh, the prompt is too long or the prompt is detail everything you need. Like, and then when you get the first one in, always remember to iterate. So don't always say like, oh, I put in the prompt, I get the result, I go. It's usually not like that. You put in the prompt, you get the result, you review what you have, and then you start going over it slowly. There's one way to do it. Another way to do it is to break it down into smaller chunks. And a lot of people do it this way, whereby they kind of understand what they need, and then they start from the start. Okay, I want to build an app. This is the beginning how it works. The thing does that part. I say, okay, perfect. Now we have that. Take the app, improve it. Here's the additional things I want. And this style is good if you know what you're doing, if you know what you're looking for, if you're sure where you're going, so you can guide it to give you the final result. And this is usually much better because you get much more solid results in the end. But if you're not very comfortable in what you're doing, then sit down, think about what you need, and then leverage AI. So vibe code or vibe prompt your prompt, leverage AI to improve the prompt. So you'd write down everything you need and you say, hey, there's everything I need. Please give me a prompt I can feed into XYZ kind of tool, which will allow me to get everything I need. And then it will just fine tune your prompt, look at the final result. If it's good, run with it. So that's kind of what I would say.
Okay.
John, over to you.
Thank you, Zeno. John will hear you, but so let's just keep our responses to maybe 20, 30 seconds for these questions because we're looking at time. So, J- John, you want to go? Yes.
Okay, yeah. So just the question, just help me repeat the question, just slightly.
So the question is could how can you structure prompts in a good way? Is there a particular process that you follow or components that a good prompt should include?
Okay, so whenever I try to write code with Firebase Studio, right? So what I typically do is that I describe the solution as exhaustively as possible, and then ask Gemini. So usually I use 2.5 Pro. Ask Gemini, this is what I'm trying to build. I need you to give me a mega prompt. I call it a mega prompt because it's usually very long. I need you to just detail the prompt, and then I feed that to Firebase Studio. So I think just like Zeno noted and Ripson noted, you use AI to actually prompt AI. Same way you use AI code reviewers to help you with code review. Use AI sandboxes to help you catch attacks before they actually enter the main system. You can use AI systems to write prompts. Right? And the way I currently use is that when I describe whatever solution I'm trying to prototype, I ask Gemini to write a very detailed prompt, and then what I find is that it would actually, write this prompt in a way that um, I couldn't possibly have written it. It would detail everything that I need to build. So you can do the same thing with ChatGPT or Grok and all the other LLMs out there. So in a nutshell, ask AI for help, and so it gives you the first draft. Then you can inject your own personal feedback into it, or you then build out the final solution.
Okay. So John, let me stay with you. This question I think fits you the best from all of you. So most SMEs in oh yep, yes, please represent.
Okay, it's John, you forgot to also ask you forgot to also add that you would ask the LLM not to hallucinate,
Oh yeah.
because that's one of the things that I used to do. I know that when Zeno is laughing. So that's one of the things I know that I do a lot, right? I always add that at the end of my prompt, please do not hallucinate. And I think I have every time I do my prompts, right? I always have this process or this structure that I follow. First, my goal has to be very clear. So clarity around what I want to achieve has to be top of mind, right? Then there has to be some context, right? Context, structure, and a few learnings or examples, something that sort of tells the prompt or guides the prompt on um, how or sort of reflect that gives a clear example of what the output should look like, right? And then I also sort of guard against misuse or tell the prompt, please do not hallucinate while providing my feedback. So I just felt that I should add that
Yes,
to what John and Zeno has also added.
it's actually very good. So explicitly forbidding hallucination is good. So John, I wanted to give you one specific question just for you, and this is for SMEs. Now, some SMEs apathy to technology. They think technology is superior to them. They don't want to hear about AI. How would you, or how can our listeners, or how would someone make them key into technology?
Right. So, I mean, there are people when the email showed up in the mid 90s, right? There are people who said, no, they're never going to use this kind of technology. When the internet showed up, there are lots of people that were, apathetic to the technology. But with time, they found out that this is the new norm. This is the new way of doing business. So, what I would simply say is that they observe how AI has crashed the cost of knowledge work. And why I say this is that, in 2022, when I was still back in university doing my MBA, the cost of top decile GRE quality writing. So if you wanted to pay somebody to write 1,000 words for you, was over $100, right? In some cases, if they were really high end, you pay them at least $500 to actually get this done, right? This is like a pitch deck or just to write a business plan for you, right? That this is within the global West anyways. But when GPT-4 showed up in March of 2023, it crashed from that cost of $100 to $500 crashed to $0.1. And then by the time we got into April of 2023, when Anthropic released Claude 3, that $0.1 became $0.01. So it's happening for many different domains of knowledge work. So if anything, this is a time when as many businesses as possible must adopt all of these different tools. And why I say this is because the barrier to entry for many businesses, for many kinds of digital businesses, have been lowered to a degree like they've never been lowered before. So like I mentioned at the start of this session that the solution which I'm entering for the Llama Impact Accelerator was vibe coded. This is something that was impossible before all of these vibe coded solutions came about, because what that would have meant is that I'll have to pay a developer first to build out the prototype or the MVP before I go into that contest. So in a nutshell, the cost of knowledge work is collapsing. There are conversations about something called the post-labor economy. Post-labor economy means that a lot of the things that we pay people for today would actually be going away. But for the SME person, what that means is that for a lot of the things that you typically pay for, hundreds of dollars before, you can do them now for $0.1. Data analysis being one of them. Gemini within Google Colab, right? I mean, and this is something anyone can try. Allows you to do analysis of, let's say, 100,000 rows of data. If I wanted to pay someone in the US to do 100,000 rows of data, that's at least $168 for the 6 hours they will spend on analyzing that data set. But if I give it to Gemini and Google Colab, because I have the professional capacity to actually tell that what is analyzed is actually correct, I can do that for $0, and that's something that is valuable for a lot of SMEs. For a lot of the things that people do, like even writing a newsletter, you don't need a human expert to actually do those things now. You must try the tools yourself, see the value, and then just keep it moving.
Okay, thank you very much, John. So we've run out of time. Yes, so Vipson, if you can say what you want to say in 20, 30 seconds, and then we can start
Oh,
to close.
okay. So Right. One of the ways I know you can actually drive adoption of AI within manufacturing and also influence the leaders, SMEs, right, is to look at it from an ROI play, right? So, and I think the ROI is really very clear. Look at the current state of what you're doing, what are your pain points, and once AI is sort of introduced, maybe from a workflow integration perspective, or maybe you could sort of
Okay. I think we can hear Ripson again. So we can just start to close now because we have just 3 minutes left. So I will go round for us, Zeno, John, and Ripson, and in just one or two sentences, what would you tell our listeners to take away from today's session, Zeno?
The takeaway would be the vibe coder is the biggest security risk. Pay attention to them. Pay attention to the things that the AI generate and pay attention to how it gets to your customer. That would be my summary.
Okay, thank you very much. Ripson, you want to go? Are you able to go in one or two sentences, final words? If not, John, you can.
Okay, so final words. I mean, we're past the age of just having ideas. You have an
apologies.
idea.
I think MTN is giving a bit of problem today. So I was talking about
Okay, so I mean, I'll say we're past the age of just having ideas. If you have an idea, the least you can do is at least just prototype it. There's so many options now. Prototype it, share with the world. You can have your first customers, and if you have a customer, that means you can have a business, and then you can go, raise money from friends and family and build out whatever you need to build.
That is very encouraging. But yeah, raise money from friends and family. Ripson, are you back? Let's give him 1 second. Yes, please. You're
yeah,
fine.
yeah. So I was trying to add to that point, John, to say return on investment is sort of one of the things that that you can speak to leaders, senior leaders within the manufacturing around about it. Just talk about what their current pain points are from a manufacturing perspective, and how if I introduce or integrate AI systems into your SCADA and the other components you use within your manufacturing, how that can add value, right? And what it will look like from a downtime perspective, throughput improvement perspective, from an overall cost savings, how that would look like, and being able to demonstrate that in metrics terms, KPI terms, maybe that would sort of clearly show your leaders, how impactful AI can be, right? That's another area. Another area also to is to sort of look at other climates within your other climates, and you see that the adoption of AI and robotics is actually shifting the market. Some of this research would sort of aid the understanding of how this new verticals can actually impact on your business. So maybe that those reads and those research, maybe a bit of training and AI literacy could also help sort of cause that mind shift.
Okay.
Over to you, Kachi.
Okay, thank you very much, Ripson. We'll take that as your closing statement. But thank you, our listeners, for give us if we couldn't answer your question. You can we will try to find a way to answer it maybe before the start of the next session. But thank you everyone for joining us. We have been discussing today with Zeno, with John, and with Ripson. And it has been a very interesting conversation on vibe coding. We explored what vibe coding is, we discussed some of the risks around it and how you can vibe code securely. We've talked about AI hallucination, we've talked about code review, injections. Ripson made very strong points on frameworks, people process technology. And we have the interesting clause that the vibe coder is the biggest risk. That's a very good takeaway. Um, but thank you very much, John. Thank you, Ripson. Thank you, Zeno. It has been a very interesting time for you and for our listeners as well. Um, this session was brought to you by cyberkach.com. Please follow us on LinkedIn because we have additional sessions that are coming up, and these are some of our services. There are day 2 and day 3 of this event where we'll talk about AI security across the supply chain, and then on day 3 we focus on AI security governance. Please, if you have additional questions, you can drop us a message at hello@cyberkach.com, and there's a link down there to register for days 2 and 3. And just to say, we made a promise about the free AI security policy starter pack, and we will send that out to all of our participants, all of our attendees at the end of the third session. So thank you very much. Thank you, John. Thank you, Ripson. Thank you, Zeno. And thank you to our guests and our attendees, both online
Thanks
and
for having me.
Zoom. Please enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.